Shalom, shalom. I want to welcome you all to the King James Bible University. I'm Deacon Sheldon. And if you're new here or it's your first time coming across this channels or the channels, I just want to welcome you. All right. I hope that you will gain some understanding as we go through the Word of Jehovah. And today I'll be going through the Daily Law and Meditation Study. And in this lesson, we'll be looking at the garments of the priesthood, the clothing of the spiritual mind. So, just a little side note here before we begin. We here at the King James Bible University, the house of the lost sheep of Israel, the house of Jehovah, do not associate with any Christian or camp doctrines and organization, nor any Black Israelite power movement groups. We have to let it be known there's a clear separation between us and them. We don't mix over here. All right? We study from the one book, the original 1611 King James Bible with the Apocrypha. Now, with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. So, I like to do a quick recap at what we looked at last week. And in last week's meditation study, we looked at the bitter waters. The bitter waters made sweet, right? The transformation of bitter knowledge, right? So last week, that's what we looked at. And the main key thing that we, looked at was, we said carnally, the Israelite found a literal pool of stagnant alkaline water in the desert that made them physically sick. Moses threw a literal piece of wood into the pool, and the chemical reactions occurred that made the water potable for the physical body. All right, now spiritually, water is the knowledge and understanding. The bitter water, it represents the grievous, sorrowful, and poisonous knowledge, the harsh reality of life, the trauma of the world, and the afflictions of the carnal mind. When a person drinks deeply of the bitter knowledge of this world, without divine intervention, it produces rebellion, depression, and spiritual death. We also stated that a lot of us here, we don't like change. We don't like change. We like to do the same thing, stuck in our own ways. Even when given correction, we dismiss it. We don't embrace change as we should. Well, Jehovah doesn't change. Yes, that is true. But we have changed on him. And now he's instructing us to return back to him, which requires us to change to our way, right? Change from our way. So we looked at a couple of verses here. I'm just going to, again, this is just a couple of recap of what we looked at last week. So I'm just going to be just running to some main key verses that we looked at. And we went to Malachi, Malachi chapter 3 and 6. Let me pull my Bible up. So here we looked at Malachi chapter 3 and 6, just to show you that, for I'm the Lord, for I'm the Lord, I change not, right? Just to show you that he doesn't change, right? He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, all right? Just keep that in mind. So we also looked at verse 7 also. And it says, even from the days of your fathers ye have gone away from my ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, wherein shall we return? Right? So our main verse that we looked at Exodus 15 and 23, right? And it really says, and when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. For this reason, the way of it was called Marah. And we also jumped into 24 and 25, where it says, and the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? 25 and says, and he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. I'll take a look at that tree. All of this we looked at last week, right? Which, when he have cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and ordinances, and there he proved them. So we said Marah, it means bitterness. He rebelled or bitter. So just to give us some understanding on this, so it says they just left the house of bondage, what they considered their comforts from a lifestyle that was so familiar in the flesh. They come upon this place in the wilderness where they must depend only on the guiding of the Spirit of God. Remember, a lot of people don't like change. And what do? It tells you in 24. People start to murmur against the word of truth. They cannot rely on the comforts of Egypt anymore. They're in the wilderness, the state of mind, when it has been stripped from worldly philosophies and carnal comforts. In this barren place, the soul must be fed directly from the heaven. So it's that you must be fed from that spiritual realm, receiving daily revelation that cannot be stored up or hoarded by human efforts. So just like us, once given this knowledge, we pretend like we don't know how to act in certain situations. The children of Israel did not want to rely on God for spiritual guidance. That was a key thing right there. We didn't want to rely on God for his spiritual guidance. Back then, and it's the same thing now. Why? Because we don't like change. We like to stay in the house of bondage because that is what we're used to. Right? And it says the children of Israel, they murmured against that. What we should drink. So in 25, it says, and he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. Right? So this tree right here, this tree represents wisdom. Specifically, the wisdom of the cross and the righteous man. When the tree of divine wisdom is cast into the bitter experiences of harsh knowledge of our lives, it transforms the understanding. At the waters of Marah, where Moses made them the statute and ordinances, this was to prove them whether they would walk in Jehovah's law or no, right? This is what we are commanded to do. But we are so rebellious, we ain't going to keep it, and we're not going to do it. So that is why He called the way Marah. Bitter, he rebelled. They rebelled. And we walk into the footsteps of our forefathers, right? So what? We rebel. Israel is Israel. One of its meanings is he who strives with Jehovah. They just came out of bondage, but they did not want to receive the doctrine and statutes and ordinances placed before them. They did not want to follow because it was bitter. So the understanding of the law was bitter. The understanding of the law was bitter to them. It's not that they did not receive the doctrine. It's that was before them, but they did not want to receive it or apply it to their lives. So again, that was just a brief recap of what we looked at in last week's teaching, right? So again, in this week's teaching, we're going to be looking at the garments of the priesthood, the clothing of the spiritual mind, right? So we know that we are the chosen people, not because we were many, but because we were few. We are a separated people unto the Spirit of God. We are created in His image, in His likeness, that His name, His way might be there. We are to be a special people above all people that are upon the face of this earth. And this only have I found, that God have made man upright. Even though we are covered in the garment of skin of this flesh, we are not to seek out inventions of flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not to engage in the flesh. Love not the world, neither the things that are in this world. This is why we must take off or kill off this flesh, this carnal garment, to where we can be transformed by the renewing of our mind, putting on the spiritual covering, having on that mindset of Jehovah. All right, on our main focus topic scripture, our main topic we're going to be looking at today. I was going to start out in the law, right? And we're going to start out with Exodus 28, and we're going to start at 2, right? So here we can see it says, "And thou shalt make a holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty." Right? So this is my claim. The children of Israel are required, right? So this is my claim, that the children of Israel are required to wear holy garments, having a separated covering, right? So the question is, why are we required to wear holy garments, right? So again, we're going to ask, why are we required to wear holy garments? So, before I even think about, going to another verse, we need to ask ourselves a few key things. Our pastor is always teaching and instructing us as we go through the 1611 King James Bible with the Apocrypha. And he's always saying that these words have spiritual meanings and functions. We must see and understand how these words are moving and functioning to get a clear and better understanding of the verse. So let's take a look at the main key words in this verse right in chapter 2. So and it says, and thou shalt make a holy garment for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. So here we're gonna look at the word. So again, I like to just beforehand, I like to just give you the meanings. We're gonna see how the words is meaning and how it's functioning. So I'm gonna tell you ahead of the time, and then as we go down more in this lesson, you're able to understand and follow along in what I'm saying, right? So the word holy, right? If you go on in our spiritual keyword dictionary, how these words are moving and functioning. You can go to page 1539, you see holy, it will say separated or sanctified. So as we go down this lesson, if you hear me say holy, you know that I'm saying holy, I'm saying separated or sanctified. One of those words I'm going to be using, all right? And for the word garment, how this word is moving and functioning, garment is a spiritual condition, right? It's a cloak, it's a covering, right? It's a robe, a remnant, clothes, or a clad, all right? Same thing, I always look at glory, right? Glory is the brightness, the eternal, the power, the holiness, and the manifestation. So I'm just telling you how this words is moving and functioning spiritually. And the beauty, we see the beauty is the law, his righteousness, his doctrine, and his wisdom. All right. So as you take a look at the verse, right away you will see thou shalt. Right? It says thou shalt. So thou shalt, and it says a holy garments. And these holy garments have to be made for Aaron for the reason of glory and for the reason of beauty. So thou shalt, it shows a command coming from the Most High. So it is a must. It is a must that the children of Israel do what is being commanded. They are required to make a holy garment, right? So first we must ask why. Why were the children of Israel required to make a holy garment for Aaron? They were to receive true doctrines and teaching. All right, we're going to look at Exodus. We're going to look at Exodus, so we're going to go to 28. Exodus 28. It's Exodus 28. And I don't want to move that one. I'm going to let that one stay over there. Let me use this one. And it says, and thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted. Right? Keep that in mind. These wise-hearted, the ones are the prudent ones. Right? That's what these wise mean, the prudent ones. Whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garment to concentrate. So this word Aaron garments to consecrate, right? So this word consecrate, all right, so keep popping out. So to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, right? So the Most High is speaking with Moses, instructing him on what to speak unto the children of Israel. Aaron's garment was to consecrate him, meaning what? His garment is to separate him, that he may minister. So minister meaning to serve in the priest's office. We need to look at that word priest to get a understanding. So he's supposed to be serving in the priest's office, and it was a requirement of the priesthood. So give me 1 second. I got to look up this word priest. So, as you go down and you hear me say priest, you understand what is it that I'm saying. So the word priest, how the word is moving and functioning, right? So priest is a minister. It's a Levite. It's an elder. It's a mediator. And it says it's a man of God, an apostle, right? So that is what a priest is. So a minister also falls under the word priest. A priest, again, a priest is a Levite, an elder, a man of God. And their position is to serve the body, the members. Another way we can look at this is that they made Aaron's garments, which is his covering, to separate him, that he may be a priest unto Jehovah in the ministry or the office of service. So we see the priest, how it's moving and functioning, right? As a minister, as an elder, a Levite, or a man of God. And also this word office here, it's office, it's a duty, a ministry, a charge, or a position, or a service. So that's what the office is, right? So carnally, right? So this is, we're going to look at it carnally. Carnally, the garments of the priesthood were literal pieces of fabrics, right? Literal pieces of fabrics. So we see the garment of the priesthood were a linen piece of fabric, right? A linen breeches, a woven ephod, a breastplate of precious stones, and a golden crown, designed to make the physical man look impressive and wealthy before the congregation. So that's us, we looking at it from a carnally, right? So a holy garment. So spiritually, a garment represents the spiritual condition, right? So this is key to understand what's going on in this lesson, right? So these are the main key points, right? So spiritually, a garment represents the spiritual condition, the covering and character of the inner man. To make holy garments for glory and beauty is to clothe the mind, right? It's not something where you got to put on. It's not something where you got to, in the outer, right? Is to clothe the mind in righteousness, in truth, and divine authority. So that was how the holy garments, spiritually, what it is, right? So again, why did Israel, the children of Israel, make a holy garment for Aaron? It is a requirement according to the covenant they made with Jehovah. And to see this, we're going to go to Exodus. We're going to go to Exodus 6 and 7. And it tells us, and it says, "And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out of from under the burdens of the Egyptians." Right? We're also going to tie one more in, and then we're going to give some explanation. We're going to go over to Deuteronomy 32, and we're going to jump down to 8, where it tells us, and he says, when the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. So Jehovah, he separated the children of Israel as his people, and Jacob for his people, his inheritance, separating them first unto him in the flesh, but seeking that they would reach the point of separating unto him in the spirit. All right. We're also going to be looking at Exodus 19. And we're going to jump around Exodus 19. We're going to go to 5. We're going to jump down to 8. And it reads, it says, now therefore, for this reason, if ye will obey my voice indeed in these works, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a particular treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And I just want you guys to keep verse 6 in your minds, right? Because we're going to be touching on this a lot. So when it says, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. All right, we got to keep these in mind. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. We're going to jump down to verse 8, and it says, and all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord hath spoken, we will do. And we see, and Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. So we can see here that Jehovah shall take us to be a people, and he will be our guide. So as we here in this wilderness, on this journey, we passing through, we must obey. Meaning what? We must we must hear. We must listen. We must give respect and honor unto the Spirit of God, being in submission in our works to him by keeping his binding agreement. The children of Israel were made to be a kingdom of priests, a government of ministers, stewards, a holy nation, a separated people unto Jehovah. The promise we made, right? The key thing is, he said, was all that the Spirit of God said, we will do, right? So are we doing it? Right? So it is our identity, right? And to get some more of this, we're going to be going to Genesis. Get some more backdrop on this story. We're going Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to hit 27. And he tells us, 27, and he reads, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image God created he him. Male and female created he them. So we see that we were created in the image of a Father to be stewards of his word. And he blessed us, meaning wisdom was given with his word that we may fulfill our duty, our office, our ministry. All right, let's see that we can see that in, let me go down to 28. Genesis 1:28, and it says, and God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion, have rulership over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the airs, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So let's talk about Abraham for a little bit. We're going to go back to Abraham. So, if you have your keyword spiritual dictionary, you can look up these words and, you can follow along and, see what's being said. And, so Aaron means sunlight, shining light. I'm sorry, shining light according to the flesh or the enlightened. Right, so we can see it's a shining light. We know that what that light is, right? So we're gonna get some more backstory on Aaron, and to see, let's get some backdrop on Aaron. So to see this, we're gonna go to Numbers. We're gonna go to Numbers and we're gonna hit 26. Let's get some story on Aaron. 26, and we're gonna hit 59. 26 and 59. I'm going too fast. Slow down, man. All right, so we see here with Aaron. So we see here 59. It says, and the name of Aram is Abraham's wife. Amram's wife. I'm sorry, I'm killing these people's name right now. Amram's wife was Jochebed. All right, the daughter of Levi. Right, so we see the lineage here. What's going on? Right, so whom her mother bare to the Levite in Egypt, and she bare unto Aram. So this is Abraham. I'm sorry. This is Aaron's and Moses and Miriam, their sister. So this is just to give you some backstory to show you that Amram, right? Amram was the father of Aaron and Moses, and also Miriam, their sister. And you can see that, and they all were descendants of the Levite, and therefore a part of Jacob's heritage, right? And that's why it also, just going to tie in this verse into it. I'm going to go to Genesis 49. It's just 49 and 2. Just going to tie it in. And it says, gathered yourself together and hear ye, sons of Jacob, and hearken unto who? So ye sons of Jacob, which is of the flesh, and hearken unto Israel. So we know Israel speaking of, which is of the spirit. So we have to hearken unto your father. All right. And we're also going to tie in one more verse to this. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 9 and 8. And it says, the Lord sent a word unto Jacob, and it have lightened upon Israel. Right? So to give some understanding here, right? So we see from Genesis all the way to Isaiah, right? So right here is showing us that the word of God was sent to Jacob in the flesh, but it illuminated, or it was enlightened upon Israel, the spirit. A transition, right? This is a transition. So yeah, we say this is a transition from flesh to spirit would be required. And this is the transition that Jacob was sharing with his children. For they would receive the statutes and judgment, transforming their mindset from flesh to spirit. I know that was a mouthful, but I hope you guys were able to catch that. I'm just going to repeat it again, right? So here I said, and this is a transition that Jacob was sharing with his children, for they would receive the statutes and judgment, transforming their mindset from flesh to spirit. So why was Abraham to have a holy garment? So that's the question we need to ask, right? So we see, why was Aaron to have a holy garment? And he was a part of the lineage that would minister unto the children of Israel. This was a requirement of the lineage of Jacob, and he was included in there. And to see this, we're going to go to Exodus 28, and we're going to jump down to 4. And it tells us over here, it says, and these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate and an ephod and a robe, right? And a broidered coat, right? And it says a mitre, right? A mitre and a girded, and they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest. So, in the beginning we talk about the priest and we talk about the office, right? So you guys should understand what is being said, but I'm still going to repeat it again, right? So earlier on, when I said, a priest, right? A priest is going to be a minister, a Levite, an elder, a man of God, right? And we said the office is that his duty, his charge, a position, or a service. All right, I just want to reiterate it so I don't lose anyone. I just want to make sure that you guys have a clear understanding of what's going on. All right, let's go back. So here now we see that in the priest's office. So you see here that Aaron included his sons, and they were to minister unto Jehovah in the priest's office, the office of ministering or serving the children of Israel, which means this was going to be a perpetual covenant. So a perpetual covenant made with Aaron and his lineage. It was meant to be a continual agreement. We will come back to the making of the breastplate later on down in this teaching. And to see this, we're going to be going to Genesis chapter 17, and we go here 7, and it says, and I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. All right, so this is the promise Jehovah made with Abraham and his generation. And because Aaron was within that lineage, he gets this promise of a covenant because we are within that lineage of Abraham. He got his promise too. So he will establish or set up an agreement between him and I, you, or our offspring for an eternal contract. All right, cool. So now we're going to be going down. We're going to get some more on Aaron here. We're going to be in the law a lot. So Exodus, we're going to go to Exodus 4, and we're going to hit 16. I hope everybody's okay thus far. Hope I'm not losing anyone. Hope everyone is okay. It was all right. Good. Yay. Can you say yay, nay? All right. So let's get moving. So Exodus 4 and 16, it says, and he, Exodus 4, and we're going to hit 16. And he, right? So he's talking about Aaron. All right. And it says, and he shall be a spokesman unto the people, and he shall be, even he shall be to thee instead, in replacement of a mouthpiece, and thou shalt be to him instead of a God. So we see here that Jehovah is telling Moses what Aaron will be for him. This shows the office of Aaron, a spokesman for the people, a mouthpiece. Aaron shall be in replacement of a mouth for Moses, the word of truth. And Moses, the word of truth, shall be to Aaron in replacement of a God, the guide, the path to follow. All right, so let's look at the word. We're going to be looking at the word holy, right? So once you have made a vow to uphold the covenant, it comes with requirements. So I break these down into section, so the first section we're going to be looking at. So again, we're going to be looking at once you made a vow to uphold the covenant, it comes with requirements. And the first one we're going to be looking at is since we got to what? We got to be holy, right? And in the beginning, I told you what holy is, right? We said holy is to be sanctified or to be separated, all right? So holy, being holy, to get some more clarity on being holy, we're going to go to Leviticus 19 and 2, right? And it says, speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, ye shall be holy. So what is it that I'm saying? Ye shall be separated, right? Ye shall be sanctified, for I am the Lord your guide. I'm holy, I'm separated, I'm sanctified, right? So if we go, let me put them side by side. We're going to go over here. We're going to get Leviticus 11. And we go and get, I just want you guys to see them side by side, So we're going to go to 11. And we go here 44 and 45. And he tells us, he says, for I am the Lord your guide. Ye shall therefore, for this reason, sanctify yourselves, right? See what I'm saying? See all these words, how they're moving and giving us clarity, giving us clear understanding of what being said, right? So he says, ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, right? Separate yourselves. And ye shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of unclean thing that creepeth upon the earth. Verse 45, and it says, for I am the Lord that bringeth you up out of the land of confusion, bondage, to be your God. Ye shall, therefore this reason, be ye separated, be ye holy, for I am separated, I am holy. All right, so we see here that the Spirit, as the Spirit is, right, we should be separated. Separated ourselves, sanctify ourselves, right? Not in the eyes of men, but in the sight of our Lord, our God. And it's only through the words, his words, the words of Jehovah, can we truly be separated from this carnal mindset of this garment, this covering of this flesh, and to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. As we do so, we can be in the spiritual condition, the covering and character of the inner man. So we see here that, and this is where we have to be truly honest with ourselves and do a self-check. This lifestyle that I'm living in this moment, right now, am I being attentive enough? Am I submitting my lifestyle to his binding agreement to do what is required of me? Think about it. Only you know you best, right? So we cannot just operate like everyone else, being carnally minded. We have to have structure, order, and to be disciplined. We need to be holy as we are instructed to be, as he is, right? We're also going to get another witness. We're going to tie in another witness. John. We're going to go to John. John has something really important to tell us, right? John told us, John 17:17, and he says, sanctify them, right? Separate them, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth, all right? So separate yourselves unto the priest's office. What does that look like? Now, we know the gifts are given unto men, yes? But each and every one of us, including the women, have to serve. We can provide a service. We can provide to the body. All right, hold on, let me say that again. It says, but each and every one of us, including the woman, have a service we can provide to the body. All right, it's a typo. Gotcha. So, and that comes with the first offering your body willingly. And, just to reference it, we're going to just give a reference here. We're going to just touch on Ephesians 4 to show you that the priest's office, right, and the gift were given unto men. Yes. So we're going to go to Ephesians chapter 4 and 8. Right. And we see here where it says, wherefore he saideth, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive, and he gave gifts unto men. All right, don't be sleeping, man. So the other section, so that was the first section of the require. So once we made a vow to uphold the covenant, it comes with requirements. So in that section was being holy, right? So the next section we're going to be looking at is we have to present our bodies, right? We have to give up, man. We got to give up this body. I mean, don't be cleaving on it, holding on to dear life, right? We got to present it up. So we can go to Romans chapter 12 and 2, right? Let me start at 1. And he says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, for the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. See that word holy, right? Holy. So you know what I'm saying, right? So holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service, right? And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is key, right? That ye may prove what is that is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So we have to offer up, we have to present this earthly garment of flesh, giving up this garment, this covering, for the covering of the Spirit of God. Same as, giving up a life for a life. Renewing your mind and your lifestyle. This is our service. All right. Also, in the other next section, the requirements is a life for a life. So the purpose of being renewed in the mind is giving a life for a life. And to see an example of this, we're going to go into the law. We're going to go to Deuteronomy. Right? Deuteronomy, you're going to touch 19 and we're going to hit 21. Deuteronomy 19 and 21. And it says, and thy eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life. That's all I need right there. Stop at that comma. All right. So you should have no pity, no compassion, no mercy for the life of the past. You should not want to go back to that lifestyle to pick it up. But instead, you take your life and kill it for the life of Jehovah. No, I don't want anyone out here thinking, hey, I'm going to jump off the bridge and kill my life or kill myself. That's not how it works. All right? You got to kill out that mindset, that worldly, carnal mindset. We got to kill that off. So we got to kill that lifestyle and take on the lifestyle of Jehovah. I just want to be clear, all right? I don't want to see anybody on the news, all right? So only when this is done can we be a part of the. So when this is done, can you be a part of the kingdom of the priests, right? Having a spiritual condition. And we can see an example of this of where we touched on earlier on Exodus. That's why I tell you guys to keep it in mind, because I know we're going to touch back on it. Exodus 19 and 6, where it talks about, you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, right? So these are the same words which I speak unto you this day, right? Whosoever have ears to hear, let them hear. And, I just have a question I would like everyone to think about, right? We should all consider, how are we as a whole going to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, a separated people unto Jehovah, if we still operating and indulging into these worldly practice and activities, right? We have to keep it a buck with ourselves. We got to be honest, right? How can we be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation unto Jehovah, and we still operating and indulging in this worldly practice? Having on that same covering, that same mindset as the unbelievers, or the one that is defiled or uncircumcised do, right? So how can this be possible? How can you distinguish between the two, right? So to give an example, we up in the clubs, we're partying as they do, right? So we partying as they do. We celebrating holidays as they do. We eating all these unclean foods as they do, right? And you all worship a white Jesus upon a cross as they do. Y'all in the same church building as they do. So the key thing is, we're not trying to be set apart, right? Just to be seen by men. All right, I just want to say that again. The key thing is, we are not trying to be set apart just to be seen by men. Oh, look at me, right? I'm holy and you're not, right? However, we are to be separated in the sight of Jehovah. We don't care about flesh. We don't care about people and what they got going on. The only thing that matters is we have to get right and separate ourselves in the sight of Jehovah. And let's see an example of this, of when we have. So let's see an example of when we have on that unbelieving garment, that covering, how they appear carnally, right? And to see this, we're going to be going to Matthew. We're going to hit Matthew 23 just to see, as I said, carnally, these garments, these unbelieving garments, and how they appear. So Matthew 23, we're going to jump down to 27, and we're going to hit 28 as well. So it says, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. So we see this ain't good, right? It says, for ye are like unto white sepulchres, which indeed in these works appear beautiful outwardly, but are within full of dead man bones and of all uncleanness. 28, it says, even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. So you see, these people are full of hypocrisy and acts of sin, right? But I just want to tie one more in it. We're going to be looking at 20. I just want to put them side by side. So 23, and we're going to hit 5 and 6. Matthew 23, 5 and 6. And it tells us, but all their works they do for to be seen of men. They made broad their phylacteries and enlarged their borders of their garments. Right? We've been touching on these garments. And loved the uppermost rooms at feasts and the chief seats in the synagogues. Right? We know where that is. Right? So, the reason why I went to this verse, is to show you that, appearance, right? People can appear one way and they're completely another way, right? But appearance, a lot of time, people dress to impress, right? To appear, wealthy before the congregation. They all decked out in their suit, in their red bottoms, right? Hey, look at me. I'm a man of God. And a lot of people, they get fall for the okie dokie, right? They get fall for that. And in some cases you have some people might wear, some wear robes with, different styles and patterns, and you even got some that wear like, some wear like garments of like Power Ranger suits, right? Thinking, they out here trying to save the world, right? And you got some wearing, garments of armor, putting on armor like it's the movie. I don't know if you guys watched the movie Sparta, right? Or the Gladiator movie. That's how these people, are wearing, and they're saying they're the high priests, right? They're the high priests of the armies of God, right? But I'm just showing you that these are all hypocrisy, right? These are all carnal, just to be seen by men, right? And I just want to tie in one more verse to this. We're going to go to Ezekiel real quick. Ezekiel, just to see what they do. So Ezekiel 22 and 26. And it reads, it says, her priests have violated my law. They have profaned my holy things. So they defiled it, right? My holy things, they have put no differences between the holy and profane. Neither have they shown difference between the unclean and the clean. Right? So it even goes down more, and they hid their eyes, their understanding from the Sabbath, and I have profaned among them. Right? So we see That's what's going on. But if we go to the law tells us that we have to be able to put aside and make a difference. Right? The law tells us in Leviticus chapter 10 and 10 that ye may put differences between holy and the unholy, and between the unclean and the clean. Right? So that's what's going on there. But if we're going to be looking in another section here, and this section that we're going to be looking at is going to be really bumpy, and I'm just going to be taking my time to go through it, and I just want to make sure that everyone can able to follow along and what's been said and what's going on. So we're going to be looking at Isaiah 61, and we're going to hit 10. I'm going to take my time with this. I might repeat it a couple times, forgive me if, hey, why is this guy repeating same thing over and over? Hey, I just want to make sure that when we leave here from this lesson, you're able to gain some understanding. All right? So that is why. So we're going to take this time here. It might be bumpy. So here we're going to be Isaiah 61 and 10. And it reads, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God. For he have clothed me with the garments of salvation. He have covered me with the robe of righteousness, as compared a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. All right, just want to give some understanding here. So we see when you receive the covering of salvation, you will greatly rejoice, because once entered into the covenant, it's like entering into a marriage. You wear your garment, which is your covering, or you fulfill your duty with honor. All right, so just to give more clarity, more insight on this, we're going to go to Jeremiah. We're going to hit chapter 2, and we're going to hit 32. Jeremiah 2 and 32. I'm going to take my time. And it says, and a maid, right? And a maid. So we know a maid, for here we're going to say a maid is a servant. Forget. So can can a servant forget her ornaments, right? Or a bride her attire, right? So no, right? But it says no, because they won't forget their positioning. Remember, all right? And I want you guys to keep in mind, right? We just want to pull this up here for reference, right? So remember, we are the servant and bride, and Jehovah is the bridegroom and our husband. And I just want to reference it, but I'm going to pull it up because, again, I just want to make sure you guys are able to see and to understand what's being said. So I was going to reference it, but I'm going to pull it up. So Isaiah 54 and 5, it tells us, for thy maker is thy husband. The Lord of hosts is his name, is his way. And it says, and thy redeemer, the Holy One, right? The Holy One of Israel, the God of the whole earth shall he be called. Right? So, where was I? So, those who are truly seeking after the Spirit of God will greatly rejoice in Jehovah. Why? Right? That our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you the spirit of revelation in the knowledge of him, that your eyes, that your understanding be enlightened, having made known unto us the mystery of his will, in whom ye also trusted, after that ye heard the words of truth, the gospel spoke. We know the gospel is the message of salvation. All right, and just want to give a little more clarity on this. We're gonna go to 2 verses. We're gonna go to Psalms, and we're gonna hear Psalms 28. We're gonna jump down to 7, right? 7, and tell us, the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, for this reason, my heart greatly rejoiceth, and with my song will I confess unto him. Right? And we also, so we see, you just want to tie in to show you that this is who we got to be trusted in, who we have to greatly rejoice in. All right? That's the reason why I was led to bring that verse there. So another one that we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at 2 Chronicles, and we're going to be looking at 6 and 41. 2 Chronicles 6 and 41. And it reads, and it says, now therefore for this, and it says, O my Lord God, into thy resting place thou, and the ark of thy strength. Let thy priests, O Lord God, be clothed with salvation, and let thy saints rejoice in the goodness. All right, so we see here, when we choose to be clothed with salvation, we are asking the Spirit to rest within us. Why? All right, so why are we asking to be rested in us? Now he can do that because we have taken off the carnal mindset, and now we are being renewed with the spiritual mindset. All right. And I also want to tie in one more law into this. Going to go to Leviticus chapter 8. And we're going to see what is it we have to rejoice in. And it says, Leviticus chapter 8, we're going to hit 7 and 8. And it says, and he put upon him a coat, and girded him with the girdle, and clothed him with the robe, and put the ephod upon him. All of this we're going to be touching more down as we go down in the lesson, right? And just keep that in mind. And he girded him with the I mean, he said, curious girdle of the ephod, and bound it upon him therewith. Verse 8, and it says, and he put the breastplate upon him. Also he put in the breastplate Urim and the Thummim. Right? So again, as we go down in this lesson, just keep this in mind. We're going to be touching on the breastplate, the Urim, right? And the Thummim. We're going to be touching on this as we go down. So to give an example of this, I was led to go, we're going to take a look at Joshua when he was clothed, right? So Joshua, we're going to go to Joshua. And again, just keep those in mind. We're going to touch that down later on. We're going to go to see when Joshua, when he was clothed. And to see this, we're going to go to Zechariah chapter 3. And we're going to hit 3. And it says, now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. right? And we see, and verse 4, and it says, and we're going to break it down. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thy iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with change of remnant. Right? So we see here that Joshua stood before the angel. So we see he stood in the presence of a messenger. And guess what? We are also in the presence of a messenger, right? Of these mouthpieces of God. What? Telling us and warning you to take off or to kill off, to get rid of that filthy, fleshly, carnal-minded covering that we got on, right? That's all in a nutshell, this verse is saying. And we can also just reference Genesis chapter 3:21. I didn't really have this. Just want to put this in there just to show that what we are covered in this garment, right? To see this, Genesis 3:21, it says, unto Abram also unto his wife did the Lord God make coats of skin and clothe them, right? So, and this is what we are in today. So we are clothed in this filthy garments. I know a lot of people might say, who you calling filthy? Look at me. Look at me. I'm all that in a bag of chips. You're filthy. All right, we are all clothed in this filthy, in this filthy garment of this flesh. Let me stay on track. And a lot of us, we are stuck to this flesh like glue. We don't want to let go of it. Right? But Jehovah puts us in them to identify sin. Right? That's the main key purpose why we're in this flesh. To identify sin only. But we took on the flesh as though it was our true image or our true identity. Right? So we see, if we go back to Zechariah chapter 3 verse 5, right? So that section is all good, right? And 5, it tells us, it says, and I said, let them set a fear miter. I apologize if I pronounce it wrong. A fear miter upon his head, and clothe, so that set a fear miter upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. So just to give understanding of what this fear miters is saying miter, right? So this fear is talking about this pure and righteous, and this miter is the crown, right? So I remember when we touched in Leviticus 8, 7 and 8, I said to keep these in mind. We're gonna be clearing them what it is, right? So these are all the miter, right? So the miter, let me go back down here. This miter is a crown, an ephod, a breastplate, right? A breastplate, a urim and thummim, right? So that's how this miter, that's how it's moving and functioning. It tells you what it is. But to give some more clarity on it, it says, let them establish, right? So let them, just reading back the verse over with understanding, right? So let them establish, right? Let them establish a pure and righteous crown of glory, of truth and divine authority, and clothe him with garments. So this is where Joshua is clothed with the spiritual mind in righteousness. Has received these doctrines and teachings. All right, just I know I said a mouthful, but I was hope that you guys are able to understand of what's being said. Right, so this is where Joshua is being clothed with the spiritual mind in righteousness. He has received these doctrines and teachings. All right. Also, another section we where I looked on is another requirement of covenant, another requirement of the covenant, choosing to receive the breastplate of righteousness. All right, so that is what we're going to be looking at, right? Choosing to receive the breastplate of righteousness. So keep in mind, in last week's teaching, you can see when the children of Israel came to Mara, right? They did not want to receive the statutes and ordinances which was laid before them. They choose not to what? They choose not to receive what came with the bearing of the breastplate of righteousness. Right? Because why? It was bitter for them. However, those who are of the priest's office, right, do uphold the breastplate of righteousness with honor. All right, I hope you guys are able to understand that, and I'm gonna make sure I put my email in this. If I can ask Sister Tanisha if you could just put my email in there. If anyone have any questions based on this lesson, you can send me an email, and I'll make sure I do my best to give you more clarity on it. Right. So in the next section, we're going to be looking at Sirach, or in most books you're going to see Ecclesiasticus. All right. So we're going to look at Sirach 45. 7 and 8. And it tells us, and it says, an everlasting covenant he made with him, and gave him the priesthood among the people, and beautified him with comely ornaments, and clothed him with a robe of glory. Right? So, if you've been following thus long in this teaching, you know that this lesson is all talking about the covering, the garment, right? So, verse 8, it says, he put upon him perfect glory, and strengthened him with the rich garments, which beseeches with the long robe and the ephod, right? And to get an example of what being said here, and then I'm going to explain. So to get an example of this, we're going to go to the law. We're going to go to Exodus. And we're going to hit 28 and 4. Right? And right here it says, Exodus 28 and 4, and it says, and these, right? Keep in mind, and these are the garments which they shall make, a breastplate and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, right? A coat, a mitre, and a girded, and they shall make a holy garment for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. So we see here So just to give an clarity on this, so we see here the breastplate, right? The breastplate. Again, if you have your spiritual keyword dictionary, you can go through and see what these words with these meanings and what they're saying, right? All of these stuff. So here it's telling you, and these are the garments. So these, the breastplate, right? The ephod, the robe, the bridle, the coats of myrrh, the girded. These are all represents the garment, the garments, right, of the separated spiritual covering. All right, that's what it's saying. So, just to give more clarity, so a garment or a tool that makes you equipped to do the service of the priest's office to Jehovah. All right, I just want to reiterate it again so you guys will understand. So what I'm saying is, right, all these that I just listed, all these breastplate, the ephod, the robe, the bridle, the coats, the myrrh, all these are all represents a garments, the spiritual, that's the separated spiritual covering, a garment or a tool that makes you equipped to do the service of the priest's office to Jehovah. All right, and I just want to give, I was led to go to Exodus just to give more clarity on it. Exodus 31, and we're going to hit 10. And it, because I said these are all services, right? So, and it says, and the clothes of service, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments for his sons to minister in the priest's office. We looked at the word priest office, right? So we know what it's saying. And also, we just want to bring in one more. We're going to go to tie it in just to make sure, you guys get some understanding of what's being said. So Exodus 28 and 30. I know Pastor Michael bring this up last week. And it says, and thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goeth in before, so in the presence of the Lord, and Aaron shall bear the judgment, right? So we're going to touch on this judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually, right? So here we see that the Urim and the Thummim is, so these two right here, right? This is the breastplate of righteousness and holiness. This is an instrument showing you that the children of Israel are required to receive judgment. So it's judgment. We are required to receive doctrines and teaching continually. All right. And I was just led just to rent to Psalms. I hope you're able to understand this. Just go to Psalms 147. Here we go, hit 19 and 20. Time is catching up. It says, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments. So this his doctrines and teaching unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. For as for his doctrines and teaching, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. All right, so we see that the followers, so this is a key to understand this lesson, right here. So it says the followers of Christ is called to a royal priesthood, right? Keep that in mind. You cannot enter the holy place of divine understanding wearing the street clothes of worldly philosophies, anger, or pride. Oh man, not pride. The mind must be deliberately dressed. You must put on the linen of purity, the breastplate, right? The breastplate of righteous judgment, and the crown of holiness. The spiritual garments are not for outward show to men, but for inward manifestation of Jehovah's power and order within the soul. All right? I know I said a mouthful, but I hope that you understand what's being said. So again, I just want to, as we winding it down, but I just want to reiterate it, right? The key points in understanding this lesson, right? So I'm gonna read that. We're going to look at it carnally and then spiritually. All right, let's go. So carnally, the garments of the priesthood were literal pieces of fabric, linen breeched with woven ephod, a breastplate of precious stones, and a golden crown, designed to make the physical man look impressive and wealthy before the congregation. All right. So now, spiritually, on the other side, spiritually, a garment represents the spiritual condition, the the covering and character of the inner man. The priest, right? The priest is a mediator, the spiritual mind that stands between the flesh and Jehovah, to make holy garments for glory and beauty is to be clothed the mind in righteousness, not the flesh, but the mind in righteousness, truth and divine authority. A naked mind is one exposed in its carnal shame, clothed only in the filthy rags of its own self-righteousness. And again, the followers of Christ is called to a royal priesthood. You cannot enter the holy place of divine understanding wearing street clothes of worldly philosophies, anger, or pride. The mind must be deliberately dressed. You must put on the linen of purity, the breastplate of righteous judgment, the crown of holiness. The spiritual garment are not for outward show to men, but for inward manifestation of Jehovah's power and order within the soul. All right, cool. So I'll press for time. So I just want to bring out this similitude so we can look at it, and then we go through the parable. So we see here a similitude of, so it says a soldier, right? A soldier does not go into a fierce battle wearing silk pajamas, nor does a surgeon perform a dedicated operation wearing muddy overalls. The function dictates the garments, right? The pajamas will get the soldier killed. The mud will infect the patient. And this is key. The spiritual mind must wear the garments of salvation and the robe of righteousness, for the environment of the spirit demands absolute purity and protection. All right, so that was a similitude that, how I, like to show you guys so you guys can follow along. All right, so let's go to the parables. So now we're going to go to the parable. I can't do it this way. All right. So now we're going to be looking at the parable. And here we see Jehovah spake this parable. Hear now a dark speech of the kingdom. A beggar was invited to the king's wedding feast, the king sent a messenger with a pristine white robe, saying, "Wear this, for no one may enter in the hall in rags." And we see the beggar look at the robe and said, "My rags are comfortable." All right, my rags are comfortable, and they show where I have been. I will wear my own clothes. When he arrives at the feast, the guards cast him out into the cold, for his rags insulted the dignity of the king's house. And this is key to understand the parable. See, the carnal mind clings to the filthy garments of its past trauma and pride. Here's our pride again. But the spiritual mind gladly strips them off to be clothed in the garments of the king's righteousness. Right? So I hope you were able to understand this parable. But however, while I was meditating, I was looking at it, just want to give some more clarity and understanding for those who may not quite get it, right? So you can look at it as this beggar right here, right? You can look at this beggar, and this beggar is going to represent you, us, right? And the king, you say the king would represent Jehovah, right? And here you will see Jehovah is sending his messenger. So just like here, you have, these messengers are his mouthpieces with this pure and righteous doctrine. And with his mouthpiece, it's going to be saying to you, wear this pure, put on this pure covering, right? Put on this covering, kill off this filthy garment that you have on, and put on this covering of Jehovah. And you can see what a lot of us do. We refuse Jehovah's offering. We wear our own apparel. A lot of us say, my filthy rags that I got on, I'm comfortable. I will wear my own covering, my own apparel. And when we arrive to enter in, he's going to cast you out. Why? Because we still cling on to the carnal mind, the filthy garments of pride and the cares of this life. But you see, the spiritual mind gladly strips them off to be clothed in the holy garments of their king's righteousness. All right. So I hope that you guys are truly able to get some understanding in this lesson. And I just want to leave you with our daily meditation as well. All right. So before we go out, just something for you guys to meditate on. Whoa. Am I trying to serve Jehovah while still wearing the comfortable, filthy garments of my old carnal habits, right? And, again, this is for something for each and every one of us to take with us, to meditate on. Ask yourselves, right? Am I trying to serve Jehovah while still wearing the comfortable, filthy garments of my old carnal habits, right? Or have I put on the holy garments of his righteousness? All right. So these are things, just meditate on. Again, these are not something for you to look at other people and, oh, what about them? What about he? What about she? Right? You got to look at ourselves. We got to start with ourselves. Right? So up next we have Elder Jonathan. I hope you guys are able to to join in into his lesson. And I truly want to just take this time out to just give Jehovah all thanks and praises and honor to him. For truly, if it was not for Jehovah to open up and give us this understanding using this vessel to give us the understanding to put forth this lesson, and all praises goes to him. We take no credit. He says that we should decrease so that he may increase. I just pray and I hope that none of these elders or pastors or evangelists and our brothers, these lesson goes on deaf ears or to the waysides. I truly hope that you have gained some understanding in this lesson and that we learn from it to make the necessary changes in our lives on this journey. I thank you all for joining me today. Again, I am Deacon Sheldon with the King James Bible University and the Caribbean KJBU. And I just wanted to say shalom to you all. Shalom, shalom, everyone.